We're going to turn our attention more inward, not from China, but to the United States, because Bill Ackman is calling for a massive infrastructure spending program from the federal government. Julia LaRoche wrote about this and has posted this live. Tell us more, Julia, about what Ackman is calling for.
Hey, Adam, that's right. And Bill Ackman, the well-known hedge fund manager and activist investor who runs Pershing Square Capital, who normally snaps up large stakes in big companies and pushes for change from management, has been quite active lately. It's a bit unusual on Twitter. Just 2 weeks ago, making news, calling for President Trump to shut down the U.S., except for essential businesses, for 30 days. Here's what he's asking President Trump to do now on Twitter. Bill Ackman tweets, "Mr. President, why don't you launch the biggest infrastructure program of all time now? Roads, bridges, and other infrastructure involve outdoor work that allows for social distancing. Doing so will put Americans back to work now in good paying, virus safe jobs." Now, Ackman also went on to tweet that this can be done relatively cheaply, pointing out that near zero cost long-term financing is available. He also says that build costs will be lower because of lower commodity prices and less competition for labor. He says, "We can rebuild America's infrastructure and help support the economy to enhance the recovery from the virus." He also pointed out that President Trump would get unanimous support from this from both Democrats and Republicans. And it gives us hope for the future. He says, "Let's get a good many of our fellow Americans working again in all 50 states, while those of us with desk jobs work from home." I'll also point out, Adam, this is not the first time that Ackman has brought up infrastructure. Back at the 2017 SALT conference, which is hosted by Anthony Scaramucci and Skybridge Capital, Scaramucci asked Ackman, using that activist mindset, how could Trump turn around his presidency? And at the time, he said that he would do infrastructure, that he pointed out this was bipartisan, that this is something, when you look at America, and we've talked about this for many years, it seems like we're far behind on infrastructure. Our roads are terrible. That's a fact. That's something that's well known. You've heard CEOs on conference calls complain about our airports, for example, our bridges, our tunnels, et cetera. So there is an investing gap, if you will, when it comes to our infrastructure. So Ackman, I've known him for many, many years. Yes, I mentioned he's an activist investor, also an activist in life. And when he sees a problem, he's going to identify it and speak up about it. And now he's got this Twitter platform, almost 100,000 followers, getting quite a lot of attention lately. Adam?
Julia, I'm curious if he mentioned the fact that last week and a little bit before that, when he was sounding alarms about the U.S. economy and then made, over $2 billion by shorting some of the market, that it brought into question some of his credibility. Did he address that? Because a lot of people... And Adam, I think that's really important to address. I want to be very clear. So on our air, before we were all work from home, Ackman had put out this letter about these large notional hedges that he had put on that had asymmetric payoffs. He was very public about that he was worried about what was happening with the economy and the coronavirus's impact and put on these hedges. At the time, I thought maybe they were credit default swaps. If you go back to the prior crisis, Ackman made his name in CDS. That's exactly what he did. Now, for those who aren't familiar, and he's explained this, credit default swaps are used as a kind of form of insurance on your portfolio. So he put on the CDS, it was $27 million that turned into proceeds of $2.6 billion. It's not like he was actively shorting stocks, to be clear. Now, meanwhile, Ackman's portfolio, he has a handful of stocks, but huge positions in a handful of stocks. I'm talking about billion-dollar plus positions in just a small number of stocks like Berkshire Hathaway, Hilton Hotels, Restaurant Brands, Chipotle, Agilent Technologies, Lowe's, et cetera. And it's not like he sold off any stocks. It did not sell off stocks, did not short stocks, but used the CDS as a hedge portfolio insurance. So they took the profits at $2.6 billion, which is about equivalent to what they had lost on the portfolio, going down about 30% on a mark-to-market basis. They put that money back to work in those stocks, also re-entered Starbucks. That was a very profitable position for Ackman. I'm sure he saw the levels and thought they were attractive. This was not him. And he said this was not him talking down the stock market. He was genuinely worried. He had been publicly bearish. He is bullish on the idea that the Trump administration will do the right thing. Yes, he called for a 30-day shutdown. Right now, you've seen the president just recently, talking about extending those social distancing guidelines, but you've seen a number of states, a number of governors who have actually enacted, stay-at-home protocols for their various states. So it seems to me that Ackman, based on what our conversation on our air, that he's confident that we'll get through this. He saw buying opportunities. Just to clarify, he was not short any individual stocks. I mean, the credit default swaps were things in like high yield, those sorts of things. And he already exited a huge part of that position prior to that CNBC interview. Adam?
Julia, I'm going to chime in if I can on this. And I don't know if this is more of a question or a comment, but just to play the skeptic a little bit, not on the investing front, but just the effectiveness front. Bill Ackman, yes, is a well-known activist investor, well-known investor, period, less known as a political activist, right? And I don't know what kind of pull he would have in Washington. Yes, he has a big Twitter audience, but
now he does.
He's cynical unless he's saying this stuff on Fox News, perhaps. I don't know if the president's going to get the message or act on something like this. So you have to wonder, him using his platform in this way, if it's actually going to percolate and get to some kind of actual action.
Yeah, it's interesting, Julia. I think this is an ongoing conversation, and I would go back to, whether or not he's a politician or whatnot. And I think you are seeing leadership from business leaders who are at least speaking out, and people want solutions. And I feel like if you have ideas, to sit quietly, what good is that going to do? People don't have to listen to your ideas, but if you have every right, freedom of speech to voice your concern, voice your ideas on your platforms. And the reason he's garnered such a following, I mean, that has to do with the way that he's built his brand, the way he's run his firm for the last couple of decades now, I suppose at this point. I'm not sure exactly how old Pershing Square is anymore, but I mean, at least the early 2000s, they've been around. So yeah, I think if you have ideas, I mean, I've seen other letters. Maybe people aren't necessarily going on air and talking about it. That's a personal choice. He had been off of financial TV for over a year at this point. So, I mean, I don't know.
Yep.
I don't know the answer to that.
Well, Julia LaRoche's article with Bill Ackman is posted at yahoofinance.com. You can read that.
Hey, investors. Zach Guzman here. Are you interested in learning more about the markets and getting the latest financial news? Well, then click right here to subscribe to our Yahoo Finance YouTube channel. Get the latest up-to-the-minute market analysis, big interviews in the world of finance, and information on how to manage your money every day wherever you are.